Hi, I'm Cody with GraceBased. On season 2 of the GraceBased podcast, you're going to hear from Aaron and Dana Daly. They're good friends of mine, and they are going to share with you a vision for how to talk to your kids about sex through a grace-based lens. I am so excited. As a father of 4, my wife and I are constantly having this conversation. We want nothing more than for our kids to grow up with a full vision of the idea of what it means to understand sex, relationships, marriage, and the goodness of how God created us in our bodies. And I'm so excited to share this with you, so go check it out.
So this episode, what we're going to talk about is taking that message of Jesus and putting it into practice. The ways that I think are important for us is if we just preach this thing and it's not practiced, our kids will notice that.
Right.
Especially if we're practicing different. Like if we're saying Jesus does these things, but then we have a different practice, I think it can confuse our kids. So this is why we're trying to make redemption. So we flew over like the big picture and the love for Jesus, but how do we bring that how do we pray that heaven, the realities of heaven will be on earth here? The first way that I can think of is we're sitting with our kids and talking to them is not just emphasizing forgiveness. This is a big mistake that I see with a lot of families and a lot of people in church is that they've reduced the message of Jesus just to you are forgiven. And as true and as wonderful as that is, can you just imagine that if the only thing that Jesus does for us is just forgive, not that that wouldn't be enough, but it is also more than that. It's that he forgives us and he changes us. He gives us a new heart. I think it can feel so hopeless for a kid who's struggling with some sort of addiction or struggling with some sort of brokenness in their life. And they're like, I know God forgives me, but I don't think he can change me.
Right.
That's a stuck place.
Yeah.
Because then it's like the
It's
best that I can have. It's hopeless.
Yeah.
Now I'm just always going to need forgiveness. Yes. Yes. But he can't change me. And this is why I think we have to get back to helping our kids see that change is maybe not immediate.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it could be like all of a sudden God just changes you.
Right.
But most of the time, change is a process, but that God is a part of that process of working. So I know for me, when I came to the revelation of the gospel, God brought me to creation. Matter of fact, got to write a book on this section, just Genesis chapter 1. And I got obsessed with not just how the world was dark and empty and formless on day 1, but then by day 7, it is resting and beautiful, and there's shalom, and there's all this type of stuff. But the distance between day 1 and day 7 can be like, I don't know if I'll ever get there.
Right.
But God is the one who's moving each day along, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. So I want to help all of those who know Jesus to say, yes, God forgives. That is so true.
Yeah.
But he also is creating in you a new heart. He's making you a new creation.
Right.
And it may not be like a big bang, but it may be day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. But by day 7, there's this change. And this is where I want us to give our kids hope.
Yeah.
That even if you feel stuck or trapped or addicted or you're in something, that yes, God forgives you. And they need to know you're forgiven. But yes, God changes.
Yeah.
He changes us, he restores us, and he renews us.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where it takes us creating environment where we allow for kids to be in process.
Right.
So what kind of environment do you think we need to create where kids can grow up with the message of grace?
Yeah, I think a word that you hear used a lot, and I think can be done well, but also not done well, is when people talk about boundaries. We have these rules, like we have to set all these boundaries that protect us from everything, cover everything. And then if we go outside of those boundaries or somebody comes inside those boundaries, it's like red flags and danger and everything's a mess. And I think there's something about living in space where we're constantly being teachable and we're constantly teaching our kids, where it becomes less of, again, here's all the rules. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, we do need safety and boundaries. I don't want to take from that. But also sometimes I think we make those boundaries so tight that our kids don't know how to live in a world outside of those boundaries. And so to be able to truly disciple our kids, truly do life with them, truly be able to teach them as we're going. And with, like you were saying, kids that are struggling with addictions or hurt or all the struggles with sexuality, not trying to go, okay, here, let's set up all these boundaries so that you don't have to deal with any of that and nothing will ever hurt you again. We can't do that. That's not a real world. That's not setting them up for adulthood, because the reality is, like, we're not just raising kids, we're raising adults. And so if that's the case, what do I do to help prepare them to be an adult and be in a world and be able to function? And so I think I just picture, like, alongside them. Like, we're not trying to do it. We're up here and we're trying to get them to us. It's just alongside, doing life, learning, growing, being watchful, being a good, like we've said over and over, listening, hearing them, walking with them. And in the everyday, I love it when I get excited about something that the Lord shows me, because I want to tell my kids. I'm excited to talk to my girls on the way to school about something new God's showing me. And being able to use that as, that's everyday things. That's not just constantly going to, okay, now today, did you look at porn? Did you fail today or did you pass today? As much as, look at what God's showing me. Look at who God is, pointing everything back to who he is in my life and revealing him through my life to my kids, and hearing them, asking them where they see God, asking them where they're growing, asking them, instead of the questions of, are you passing and failing, more of like, where are you seeing God? What does that look like for you in your world? What does that look like? I know what it looks like in my world as a grown-up. What's it look like in your world? And you teach me as much as I'm teaching you.
And this is important, because when we only talk to them about their addictions or only talk to them about disciplining them, discipline has to be a part of parenting. I mean, we have to discipline our kids. You discipline those that you love. But when discipline is not a part of discipleship, then it becomes disconnected from the reality of your real responsibility. So we're not saying don't discipline your kids, but we are saying disciple them and let discipline just be a part of your discipleship, not the whole thing. So sometimes parents just become disciplinarians, like moral police who just want to catch up with their kids on stuff. Where this does is it creates an atmosphere for us to make healing possible. So what we end up doing is we create a healing process where now they're not just forgiven, they actually can grow. And healing takes time. You mentioned it. And safety, which is that. And then making some real decisions through prayer. So I would encourage, like, if you need community as parents, make sure you have other parents around you.
Yeah.
And ask them, like, hey, what would you do in this place?
Yes.
Not just ask your kids, like, what do you need me to do? Right. They often don't need. They often don't need what they need. Yeah. They often don't know what they need. They know where they're struggling, but ask other parents. Reach out to resources. Like we love grace-based parenting and grace-based the families and the structures and the frameworks. Get books, get resources. There's other organizations out there. Get as much as you can to work on your parenting. Sadly, most parents don't spend any time applying the message of grace to their own life. And so getting help and resources, maybe it's providing or getting a counselor or therapy. Maybe there's things that you need in those. I mean, we know these things, none of these things are the answer. Yeah. Jesus is the answer, but maybe there's tools, confession, maybe there's discipleship pathways in your church. But all of this is a part of showing that we are creating a place of safety and a patient place that has time for people to walk this out over time. So we keep encouraging that if you're going to embody this, make this last over time.
I think a big part too of the why you have to take time and why it's going to take time. A lot of times we hurt our kids, and when we haven't taken time to listen to them and we've tried to fix, and that's, I think you have to give, like you're saying, give yourself grace too. Know that God is teaching you or reteaching you or healing you as well. And in that, you're going to become a better parent. So it may feel like I'm late in the game. I've already done damage to my kid. I've already hurt my kid. I think the number one thing that kids need is a safe place where they can trust an adult. Trust should not happen overnight. You shouldn't walk into a kid's life or halfway through parenting go, okay, you can trust me now. I've got it together. You can trust me now. If you haven't been building that up to that point. And if that's the case, if they're working through things, if you have messed up, if you haven't done well up to this point in parenting, I think being able to slow down, give yourself grace, and then take time to build trust with your kid. It won't happen overnight. It's not something that, if you've hurt that, it's not something that will just happen. You have to take time to rebuild trust so that they feel safe with you, so that they can tell you things and know that you're going to respond with love and grace. So I even think that it's easy to talk about what to do, perfect case scenario.
Yeah. Like
doing it well. But what if you've blown it? What if you have screwed up? You need grace, and you need to take time to rebuild trust with your kid.
Another powerful thing of displaying grace is the example that you set as parents. So we do want to say it's always a tension, because when you bring these types of things up, not everybody's living in an ideal circumstance, but I don't want you to underestimate the power of showing your kids through your own marriage how important it is to have a good, healthy marriage as a husband and wife. If you're trying to talk to them about God's plan, it's great for you to really lean into husband and wife. And so I think what makes me and you the types of parents that we could even be, if it's good at all, yes, God's grace for sure, but also prioritizing our own marriage and our own relationship as a way to model, to say, look, we're not just preaching this stuff to you, because sometimes it can become confusing if you're trying to tell your kids, here's the plan of God's, here's what Christ has done, and that we can't forgive each other. The relationship in the marriage is fractured, the brokenness that's there, and we're not modeling it. And I know that I want to say that with as much grace as possible, because I know they're single mothers and fathers, and there's divorce and all these kinds of areas of brokenness, and God has great work to be done there. But I did want to highlight that it is great to not just preach it, but practice it in your own marriage, and they can see what they're looking at.
Yeah, yes. We're trying to talk to them about being healthy, but if we're not healthy, that's nothing but fake for them, and they're quick to see fake.
And another thing is, a big one is not putting a bunch of pressure on marriage for the church, because marriage has become in a lot of ways a big idol. And there's a lot of people who don't even want to get married. They're not married. They maybe even called to singleness, those kinds of situations. And so marriage is a beautiful thing. It's an incredible gift,
right?
But it also can become a god in a lot of people's minds. And so we do have to do better for modeling what it means for someone to remain single, or for someone to live in that kind of way as a healthy and vibrant part of the church. And so these kinds of conversations, that when we talk about Jesus's love and commitment for the church, he was married to the bride of Christ for sure. But when he walked in flesh, did not enter into physical marriage, and Paul and all these kinds of apostolic leaders. So we have to get better at even talking to our kids about what it means to be single and wait for marriage. Great. And so the gospel speaks to all of those aspects. Yeah. And I think what we can do often is we just don't let the rubber hit the road on this stuff. Like, oh, Jesus forgives, but he's not changing us. Oh, Jesus can help you, but our marriage is not there. Right. Or, you wait till you're married, and then we just put the end line as marriage rather than, no, in your singleness, you can live in it. So really letting it hit the road helps in so many real ways. Yeah. And the last thing, and then maybe you could speak into this, it really does allow for us to help reframe their identity. The gospel, and most importantly, in my opinion, is where they need to be finding their identity. I know for you and for me, I wouldn't want to be known by the worst decision I've ever done in my life.
Right. Yeah. Dear God.
But to be known by something much more. Yeah. Speak to the identity issue, because this is where it really gets to the core of who they are as children.
Yeah. I think identity is something that is, again, like I feel like I say it every episode, but the longevity, the long story. I think being able to start at an early age with what we started in the first episode with creation and how beautiful creation is, and your creation, you're part of his creation. You were fearfully and wonderfully made, to make that part of their everyday world, that's just a truth they just know from early. And then that's a real live truth, not just something that's a cliche or something that's heard, but something that they believe because we as parents believe it for ourselves as well. And it's interesting to watch kids that know the Lord, and they grew up in church. It's super interesting for me to watch them live out life. Been working with kids for so long, I've got to see a lot of kids grow up. And I love to watch this season when they hit that point, and it's all different ages for different kids, where it's time for them to figure out what they believe.
Right.
And why they believe it.
Right.
And for some, it's like, nah, it's Jesus all the way, because it's always been. And they're just not shaken. That's just their truth. And it really is. It's really real. It's beautiful. And then there's other kids who you watch them grow up and they get to that season, and now it's time for things to be tested.
That's true.
And what they've believed and what they've been told, or what they didn't believe and they're now believing, or whatever it is, that's starting to be tested. And their belief is theirs. They're figuring out what they believe about the Lord, what's true. And I love that season, because when the end result is, God, I know God, period. That can't be shaken, because God and I have met. I've encountered Jesus. I know who he is. And out of that identity, I think, is really established. I think up until that point, we're figuring it out, trying to figure out what you believe and why you believe it, and the different stories that we hear, and working through all those. But you get to that point where it's, okay, God, I got to figure this out. And what's sweet is that we have a God who knows that season, and he's not afraid of it. And he doesn't push away from us. He doesn't get disgusted or annoyed by us, but he walks through that season with us. And I just picture him like, okay, figure it out. If you got to yell at me, yell at me. If you got to question me. I'm right here. And I just love watching that unravel. Sometimes it's heart-wrenching, because in that season, especially I think in this culture, the identity crisis is really real at that age. Trying to figure out who you are, and your sexuality, and what you believe as an adult, what you believe, the changes that happen from teens to adult, like that whole thing. That's such a murky season, and a lot of choices can be made that are going to have long-term effects. But when the end result is that, no, I know who God is, and because of that, I know who I am. And then out of that, live life. Like that's part of parenting. And that's where I think the longevity of parenting. It's not just you have them till they're 18. You do everything you can until they're 18 and then hands off and you're good to go. Nah, man, we're like, our oldest is 23 right now and we're still, he's friend.
Invited
it's different.
To a life,
we're his friend, but we get invited into so much of his life.
I love that.
With all of our kids. But yeah, I think identity is, again, like it's not a quick thing. It's not something you just get. I think it's a constant embodying, discipling, loving, pouring into, being intentional.
You always have to be reminded of it.
Yeah.
Even
as an adult.
Forget as an adult.
Yeah.
So 1 John talks about the stages of development. It talks about, I speak to you children. I speak to you young people. I speak to you parents. And there's this language that John uses of these different messages of different phases. And I think we've got to learn that stages of development, as you're saying, that as a children, though, it's identity messages. He said, I speak to you children, you're forgiven and you're loved, and it's identity. When they're children, you're really helping them shape your identity. To be invited into that is amazing. I speak to you young people, you're strong. And then the battle's won by Jesus is what he's saying in 1 John. They're fighting things as young people. They don't need to be hearing how strong the world is. They need to be hearing how strong their God is and how strong his power is, and that they can overcome and they can actually have hope to change, and that otherwise they'll just feel like they're getting beat up all the time. And then I speak to you parents that you have these stories and you need to be sharing them, and you know God and you know he's with it. And so we just kind of want to encourage that throughout life, people need to be hearing messages of identity. They need to be hearing messages of the strength of God as they're in the midst of battles, and that we as parents hold the stories of God's brought us through so much, and we need to be sharing this. So imagine, if you will, when the gospel really hits the ground, what our hope is that we're helping people not be identified by their worst decision. We're helping our kids know, like, you're not going to be known for the worst things you've ever done in your life, and that your story is not too broken for God to redeem you, and that we're going to affirm that what God says about you is true, that you are pure and you're righteous and you're forgiven and you are children of God and you're loved by this family. And imagine that as what we do when the gospel's doing its work with our kids, that now we become a place. I would love for my kids to look back and to see home was a place where honest and hard conversations happened.
Yeah.
Not that we did it perfectly, or not that we were even, but that it was honest and hard conversations. Mm-hmm. And it was a place that really wanted to tell me how loved I was and saw me and leaned into those places. And that home was a place that modeled, not just preached, but modeled what real grace is. And if they could remember that, that would be a win. Yeah. As well as all that they would see, man, my parents have failed in ways and I can forgive them back. Yeah. And I can love them and we can work through it. Right. That it doesn't have to be a perfect, that word perfect holds us up, but it does need to be a place of grace, a place of honesty and transparency, and a place of love and acceptance, and a place of just where we can continue this life together even after they move out. Yeah. So I know the aim is different when the gospel hits the ground. It's not just about giving rules, but hopefully this helps some of our listeners now to kind of think, man, what am I aiming for? Yeah. And to your point, they're taking the pressure off of trying to get it done in one conversation. Right. You got at least 18 years, is probably more than that. Hopefully more, yeah. But continue it, stay in it, and create not just a good message, but a great environment for your kids to be raised in.
I love that.
Hey, this is Heather from Texas. Grace-Based Families makes free resources for parents, thanks to the generosity of listeners like you and me. To join in the work of transforming generations of families, go to gracebasedfamilies.com/join.